So we're going to start off by introducing ourselves. My name is Kiahra.
Adriana.
And I'm Mollie.
Now today we are going to be introducing some of the key issues that are associated with high school retainment percentages amongst Native Americans and Alaska Natives in their high school education systems. In descending order here, we have some statistics of high school retention rates. 70.8% of American Indians drop out of high school, which is a very large issue, and it prevents them from developing their economies as sovereign governments. So today we're going to be talking about some of the key issues associated with that.
The opportunity gap. Native Americans have a large gap of opportunity compared to you and I already, the way that it is, how they live, whether it be in education or their homes originally. Many are now, they have their whole families living in one small house. They have black mold in their house. They don't know how they're going to have this problem solved. And they're just not very willing to work with the federal government because of how we run things. It's not what they believe in. It doesn't work with their culture. We're very based on paperwork, and we've hurt them in the past. So we have a huge distrust, which creates an even thicker opportunity gap with them and our inability to work together because of that. This goes in with the education systems because that is ran on a federal level, the things that we're learning. Obviously, the federal curriculum is everything that we're learning throughout the state. So as you remember from being in high school, we didn't really learn much about the Native American culture. There's not anything that really incorporates their culture into the curriculum that we are learning. So it makes it different compared to what they're wanting to learn. It doesn't really work with what they're going for. They don't have a lot of opportunity in their community, so that also makes an unwillingness to want to go to school because they see what is the opportunity, what is the benefit of this for me afterwards whenever I graduate, because they probably, even if they were to go on to college education, there's not a lot of room to make money. There's a huge unemployment rate. They feel the willingness to come back to home, help their family, and they would see no benefits from spending money in college because, they would come back to no opportunity of money in return.
And some of the current approaches that are currently in place, one of our primary sources, Denise, she is an educator in South Dakota, and she was discussing that something that has been implemented but should be implemented more are mentorships. So she especially highlighted that it should be in high school level, because as she went to college, she was still struggling with her culture and kind of identifying with the indigenous culture. And up until then, she would deny that she was a part of that culture. So having a mentorship as early as high school allows you to become educated and instill that pride into students, so that can also boost morale. If they're learning more about their education, it hits closer to home. And with education that suits the people that are going to be leaving the reservation, it doesn't seem as relevant to students because a lot of them stick around to the reservation. So if the education was more tailored towards things that could help them within the reservation, such as enlightening their culture and what they can do to sustain that culture, that can help drop the dropout rate. So with all that being said, as well, the Brenna was our other primary source. She talked about the Indian Education for All. That was actually written to the Montana State Constitution, and it was implemented in 2005. And that was an initiative that helped actually start educators to start talking about culture and making that a part of the curriculum, so that people like us kind of know what their culture is like, because as Adriana said, that isn't really it's not primary whenever you're going through social studies or history. And I remember when I went through my history courses, it was barely touched on, if at all, and it was a lot of negative connotations towards the culture. So allowing for this Indian Education for All allows everyone to kind of understand the culture and have that common ground.
So students do not want to strive for a college education to return to the reservation community unable to retain a job. As a person who was born in the Black Hills of South Dakota and a former resident of Montana, where I was raised, I was a student Indian education for all concept. And so this would eliminate some of the negative connotations associated with Indigenous Americans. And so as we look at that, we want to just focus on Indian education as far as trades go. Because as Brenna Sunby provided us with a lot of insight and information, we want to be catering to students to make them comfortable in the classroom so that they feel comfortable in their identity, and so that home and school isn't separate. It's not a separate entity. We want to merge that entity to foster their successes. And so what we need to do is tailor our education system towards Indigenous Americans like we do with many other minorities. As we have seen, our textbooks do not always mirror positive and accurate information. And so one of our key problems is that students aren't receiving the right information, and that's fostering more of that animosity towards different minorities. So with that said, they're not comfortable and they don't want to go to higher education because they don't want to have any more educational curriculum experience, because that's not something that is part of them. They are Indigenous, the reservation is their home, and they want to better the reservation. And if they can get by with living off of their federal stipends every month, that's what they're going to do, because they're not going to want to deal with any of that cultural shock. And that is what we have for you today.
All right.